Welcome to the 2020 New Testament Challenge. Today we're in Romans chapter 13. Romans chapter 13 is so timely because it talks about the purpose of government. It talks about the power of love over law and preparing for the end. I would encourage you to take your time as you read through chapter 13. Chapter 13 can be put into three different parts. The first is the purpose of government. Listen to what he says in verse 1. Everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Government was set up by God. There's three things that government is supposed to do. Today, government has its hands in so many other things, but there's three things that government was established to do. Number one is to protect freedom. Number two is to ensure justice. And number three is to preserve peace. Those three are the job of the government. In verses 1 through 7, Paul lists out what takes place in government and how we need to be responding to government. In verse 4, government was set up as leadership to do one thing. He says, "For he is God's servant to do you good." Government is to benefit the people. Now, here in the United States, government, the laws, our leaders, we get to decide those. This is a government of we the people. Therefore, we need to be involved. We get to choose our leaders and we get to choose our laws. So it's incumbent upon us to be involved, to protect life and to protect freedom. Therefore, I need to encourage you as your pastor to vote, to be involved, to speak up, and to support righteousness. These first 7 verses of what the government is all about and how we need to be involved in it, that's for us today. Then verses 8 through 10, Paul's talking about the power of love over law. Now, the power to follow the 10 commandments is listed here as being fulfilled by love. In other words, to love your neighbor, then you will not do those things that are in the 10 commandments. If we really love our neighbor, we're not going to murder. If we really love our neighbor, we're not going to steal. We're not going to covet what they have. We're not going to commit adultery if we love our neighbor because we want the best for them. And therefore, love fulfills the law. Now, here's the problem. So many times we focus on the don'ts. Don't do this and this and this. But if we simply do what God has commanded us to do, to love, everything else in the 10 commandments, it's taken care of. So because we don't love, we have the 10 commandments. But because we can't even follow the 10 commandments, now we have thousands upon thousands of other laws. But the truth is, you cannot legislate a change of heart. Only God can bring a change of heart, and that's brought about by love. Then in verses 11 through 14, Paul is talking about preparing for the end. Now here's verses that we need to really look at, because here he says in verse 11, "Understand the present time. The hour has come for you to wake up from your slumber, because your salvation is nearer now than when you first believed." Can I say the end is near? With everything that we're seeing in the news, everything that's happening around the world, I believe these are the last days and Jesus is coming soon. Our salvation draws near. Now, what are we saved from? We are saved now from the penalty of sin because of the blood of Jesus. We are saved from the power of sin because of sanctification. But we're also one day going to be saved from sin's presence as well. One day we will leave this earth and we will be in God's presence forever. Until that time, though, Paul is saying to be ready. Don't get ready, be ready, because we do not know the hour or the day. Don't be like the foolish maidens that did not have enough oil for their lamps. When the bridegroom came, they missed out. So what is Paul saying in these last verses? Keep your eyes open. Live with expectation because Jesus is coming soon. Thank you for joining the 2020 New Testament Challenge.